Powered by Red Media in partnership with TSN, it is Season 6 of the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. Celebrating the return of warmer weather is a Canadian rite of passage in trying new drinks, and Tim's cold beverage lineup is the perfect way to toast the season when the season kicks in, and it has not done that yet here in Ontario. Their new Oreo Mocha Ice Cap is a twist on Tim's iconic Ice Cap, made even more irresistible, with a blend of mocha flavor, Oreo cookie pieces in every sip. And back by popular demand, we've got the epic Oreo double stuff ice cap with Oreo cookie crumble. There's some vanilla syrup mixed in, vanilla flavored whipped topping, and even more Oreo cookie crumble on top. That, for our YouTube friends, Ray, looks like a palatial suite in Dallas, Texas. Not a bad spot. Not a bad spot.
This is every once in a while, the cards tumble in the right way, and we get, you walk into a room, you're like, oh, wasn't expecting that. So this is a good one, and we a little off day today. Catch up on what turned out to be a pretty chaotic game one, and it didn't look like that early, Dregs. It didn't, man, and then all of a sudden, man, it got flipped on its ear. So day to catch up, and back at it tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get into that good stuff of the conference finals coming up here in the headlines brought to us by Acon. But first, you and I are of the vintage, the era, the generation. I don't know. I mean, Cheers was appointment TV, wasn't it? Back in the day, where you always knew what time it was coming on. And there were just so many different unique characters that instantly, even now, you see some of the clips on Instagram or social media, whatever, and it brings a smile to your face. So, the passing of George Wendt on Tuesday brought back some of those memories, right? And tributes have poured in from all corners of the world, literally, because Norm was a beloved star on that sitcom. I mean, what a character, but talk about also being typecast, right? Because Kelsey Grammer went on to bigger and better things, Fraser, etc. Ted Danson has had a masterful, wonderful career and all that. Whenever I see George Wendt, it's always Norm. And you're probably the same way.
Well, Jason Alexander, who, of course, was on Seinfeld, right? Like, that was, how could he be anything else? Who could he be?
He was.
That was just it. And Kramer was the same, and Norm was the same. They just, their ability to take a scene in 4 seconds and make the whole part of the show about them was amazing. I mean, that I heard a podcast, and the writer Jimmy Burrows, who is a legend, was talking about that wasn't even supposed to be a regular bit. It's just like it was just written into the show one time, and everybody thought it was really funny, so they wrote in another one. And pretty soon, like, every show had Norm's entrance into the bar. And I was a fan of the early days with Coach, and Coach cracked me up, and we used to watch that a lot with my dad. It was what a career built around that character. It was pretty amazing.
Well, I mean, there's so many snippets, right? But the one that always, for whatever reason, comes to mind, and I use it often on a Sunday afternoon with my buddies at the pub, when Woody says to Norm as he's coming in, "Hey, Normie, there's a beer coming up." "No, Wood, there's a beer going down."
It's like,
I love that stuff.
There's just there's a million of them. Norm, what's up? What's up outside? Norm, my nipples, it's freezing out there. It's so stupid.
That's how old we are, though, man. Like, that's the kind of humor that cracks us
good stuff
up now. Yeah, now you got to get a lot more dark to entertain the masses. Okay, time for headlines brought to us by Acon. And obviously, we'll start with the Edmonton Oilers, the Dallas Stars, the opening of the Western Conference Final. You did that game one last night, Ray, on ESPN. And look, 5-on-5, didn't it look like the Oilers were great through the better part of 40 minutes? I mean, Nuge got that power play going relatively early. So how did Dallas flip the switch the way that they did so quickly on that power play to start the third?
Well, I mean, I would say they were beneficiaries of a couple of gifts from the Oilers, like a couple of penalties that you probably can't take. I mean,
Yeah.
Perry's is an offensive zone penalty. Kane's is a high stick where he clips Duchene in the face and or the side of the helmet,
Yeah.
and then they're penalty killing like against LA and against Vegas early in the series does not get it done. They got slaughtered against LA early, and then they gave up 3 goals in one or yeah 3 goals in the first couple of games in Vegas against Vegas, and I mean, the game was in control. I thought they looked terrific in the first 2 periods. And
Yeah.
Dallas has struggled beyond Rantanen scoring goals. And Pete DeBoer tried some new lines and they didn't really work. And by the end of the second period, he was starting to mix those new lines up. That's when you get the sense that, well, things aren't going very well. And then they get the Heiskanen power play goal. And it was almost like Edmonton lost their aggressiveness and tried to. It felt like they were going to defend,
Right.
and I don't think that's the best way to go. I still think in today's world you've got to check forward, like play up the ice. And then they took the second penalty, and then they took the third penalty, and they all end up in the net. And
Hmm.
man, they could have used a save. I think Skinner thought the first shot went in on the one goal.
Hmm.
He didn't react. He didn't know where the puck was, and then Duchene hits. I don't know who was it. Hintz hit him in the ass,
Hence.
and the
Yeah.
puck came
Yeah.
came right back to him, and he put it in the net. Like it turned into a mess, and then all of a sudden the game was gone.
Yeah. Is there like an area of the penalty kill that bugs you aside from the obvious, the goal that's scored on the power play? Or
Mm.
if you're making adjustments, if you're tweaking, what did you see in how that penalty kill broke down that needs to get addressed immediately?
Well, three different things really. The first one, the Heiskanen shot. There's three people in a line, and all three of them miss the block. And if you're
Mm.
going to block it, you better block it because the goalie can't see it. Like that, I don't hang that one on Skinner. I mean, there was I think it was Marchment that was in front of the net, and he was standing there with Nurse. So Nurse
Hmm.
really isn't trying to block the shot. He's trying to get Marchment out of the eye line. But I think it's Stetcher and Janmark that are the two more forward. And if you don't block it, get out of the way,
Hmm.
right? Like that's the first one. Either block it or get out of the way because Skinner doesn't see it. The second one, when they moved it over to Granlund, Woolman's a little bit slow getting out to challenge the shot. I mean, it's a great
Hmm.
shot, but like that rotation needed to be tighter and quicker. And the third one, they broke down in a couple of different places there. If you look at the front of the net, it's chaotic. And so I don't think it's one thing, but Dallas has got a really good power play. They've scored every game at home. They've scored on the power play in this playoff, and
Right.
so I mean this is time for Mark Stewart, who does a lot of the penalty killing, right, to get back in and dig into it. They're going to have to look at challenging different areas on the ice and keeping that front of the net a little bit cleaner so Skinner's got a chance to see it.
Yeah. So do you feel it's that simple, making those adjustments, right? Cleaning things up. I mean, it starts with more discipline. I mean, don't take the penalties as you've described. Okay,
Right.
then you tweak the penalty kills you see fit, but you also accentuate the positive, which was an excellent start, as we kind of touched on. I mean, 5-on-5, it's hard to imagine the Oilers coming out with more pressure, especially from McDavid and Draisaitl. I mean, those two were wired to go right off the puck drop.
Yeah, but not just at the start either, Dregs, right? Like it was shift after shift after shift.
Yeah, it
And
was. Yeah.
then they kill a penalty off, and Knobloch comes back with like he always does with McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman, and they score.
Hmm.
And now they got the lead. And so like everything that they were doing was working for them in that time frame. But the time
Hmm.
frame wasn't 5 minutes, it was 40. Like they totally dominated the first 40 minutes. And I guess the constant is they weren't in the penalty box.
Yeah.
So I think they're a faster team than Dallas. And so use your strength, which is the ability to get on Dallas and really pressure them. So Dallas got through the first two rounds. It wasn't their 5-on-5 game. It was their goalie and their special teams. And last night, Ottinger made a couple of good saves. I don't know that he made 6 or 7 great ones, but he made a couple of good stops. And their special teams outplayed the Oilers again. That's been the Dallas formula through the playoffs. They've now won 7 straight at home, so they're obviously pretty comfortable at home.
Right. And I mean, obviously a big win on home ice for the Dallas Stars. And, if you want to dissect, you do look at the positives from their perspective. And Tyler Seguin scores a couple of goals, including a nice one on the breakaway. Matt Duchene gets his first power play goal, as you also analyzed. But a relatively quiet night for Mikko Rantanen. And Jason Robertson doesn't quite seem to have the touch or the stride back yet, coming off that lengthy injury. So if you're Dallas, so you're looking at that and going, okay, well, we won the game. That's most important. But we had other pieces that contributed offensively that we really haven't been able to rely on to this point of the postseason.
Yeah, they could use a goal from Marchment soon. He had 22 goals in the regular season. He's got 1 in the playoffs. They didn't have any from Duchene till last night. Robertson is concerning because he missed most of the summer. He was rehabbing and training. Well, it wasn't really training. He was mostly rehabbing. And it took him half the season to really find his stride. He ended up with 35 goals. Robertson, to me, looks like he's a confidence guy. Like when he feels it, he's really good. And when he doesn't, he gets a little tentative because he's not a great skater, and he gets on the outside of the play. And right now, that's kind of where he's at. And it's a concern, but you can't speed up the process. He's going to get there when he gets there. Dallas just has to hope it's sooner rather than later. And as for Rantanen, look, he had back-to-back hat tricks, right? He's got 9 goals in the playoffs. He scored in 5 games. So he's got 9 goals in 5 games. And they've played 14. And so, there's 9 games he hasn't scored. And he wasn't really a threat last night either, I think would be what Dallas would look at and go, yeah, and we still won. Yeah. So they'll look at their positives. I'll be really interested to see what Pete DeBoer does with his lines.
Yeah.
Because the early switch, as I mentioned, didn't work. And then they switched the lines, and then they ended up with all kinds of power play time. So I don't know really that I can't even really tell you what their lines are going to look like. But one thing is they played Hintz, or wanted to play him a lot against McDavid at the start. Problem with that is then Hintz spends the whole time chasing McDavid around.
Right.
And you lose his offense. And so I'm interested to see if that little matchup changes at all from a Dallas perspective.
I mean, I think you're like me. I'm often amused by Corey Perry. I admire Corey Perry for his game and how he stays relevant this long. But even the penalty, the high stick that you acknowledged earlier that he takes, he's on the bench and he's like, "What, me? Is it me? I didn't do anything. What did I do?" And then you maybe saw it live. I didn't see it live. I see the replay. I mean, of course that's a penalty. What are you talking about? And then the end of the game shenanigans that go along with the world of Corey Perry.
But Dregs, again, you referenced our vintage. In a 6-3 game, that ending of the game was every game. It wasn't even anything to even talk about because it would happen the next game too. And the two ones that really hurt them, though, of course, were Kane and Perry. And those are 2 veteran guys that when they take them, it just feels a little different. And they certainly did not get bailed out, right? Both times they fished it out of the back of the net.
All right, let's easily transition to the Eastern Conference, which continues tonight with Game 2. Florida Ray winning the opener 5-2 on Tuesday, and more of the shenanigans. Brad Marchand at the center of it, no shock there. In tight, Shane Gostisbehere of the Carolina Hurricanes shoots the puck at Marchand. I don't know why it is, But as I watched it unfold, I'm thinking of you for a number of different reasons and the reaction and the response. And I'm thinking that it probably would have been similar because, man, like there's no masking, hiding what the intent is there.
Right.
He was trying to hit
Yep.
him from close range. Gostisbehere was trying to hit Brad Marchand, and I appreciate his reaction. I think I'd have been pissed off too.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. I don't know. 100 years ago, I'm playing for the Islanders, and Dave Manson is on the other team. I think he was with Chicago at the time, and Dave was a scary guy.
Oh yeah.
And so we were in front of the net, and for some reason, I don't know, he's given me the business a bit. And so as I skate away, I slash him. We're in the power play. I slash him in the back of the legs, and then I scurry away because I'm not hanging around there, right? Like that's not going to happen. So I get up the ice. We try a long pass, and it missed whatever the connection was, and it went right to Dave. So I turn around. Now I'm facing him, and I had just enough time to go, he's going to shoot this at me. And I hit the deck, and it went straight. I don't know how close it was because I had my head buried, but it went right over top of me and went down the ice. And unlike Marchand, I didn't go anywhere near him. I just didn't slash him anymore. I was like, well, he made his point. It was like that wasn't going to happen.
So, was there a penalty back in the day for that or no?
That was just kind of no. He was just clearing the puck down the ice.
Sure, he was.
and so the other night, though, that was pretty obvious what Gostisbehere was doing. And did he get fined or anything?
Not yet. I don't believe he has yet, but it does smell like that, though, doesn't it?
Because somebody got fined earlier in the year for taking a slap shot at the end of the game. And, we shot it down into the crowd of other players. But, man, the problem with playing like that against Florida is they're just better at it than everybody else. I think you're fighting a losing battle getting into that type of stuff with them because they have a whole bunch of guys that they lap that stuff up. They're like, it gives them extra energy, aside from the fact that they went in there and, and they jump out to the lead. They get a couple goal lead early, and that's really not the way that Carolina wants to play this series.
No, but there were a couple of other, I won't call them incidents because that over dramatizes what went on, but I think it was Svechnikov that leaned in on Bob and kind of clipped him with his hip or his thigh. And I mean, didn't seem to rattle Bob one way or another, but you could see that there was some level of intent to make contact with the goalie. I mean, I guess that's time of the year, though, isn't it? I'm not suggesting you're trying to pick the guy's head, but you're definitely trying to make some sort of contact and let him know you're there.
For sure, he is like that. Absolutely, and it doesn't. Like I still look at the Bennett Stolarz play, and I still don't see that it was this vicious play. Yet Toronto lost Stolarz for the rest of the series. Yeah, it doesn't have like what if Florida ends up with Vanacek in goal after that play? Well, then it's a whole different scenario, right? So you can't protect the goalie the way the players used to protect the goalie, which was if you go near him, somebody was going to give it to you. So the game has to protect the goalies. Yeah, because they're down, trying to cover the puck up. They can't protect themselves at all, and they probably need to be looked after. Like that it should probably be a penalty. At some point. I don't think there can be a whole lot of leeway with it.
No, and that's where the series supervisors kick in, right? As you know, and they talk to the coaches before every game, and most definitely would have had a conversation with the officiating crew post game to say, hey, just keep an eye on this because we can't have that continue. If it's a penalty, call it a penalty, but in fairness, make sure it's the penalty. What are you seeing out of Matthew Tkachuk? I like it's easy to say what we're not seeing from him, right? But that's not a criticism. It feels like Florida, and maybe that's part of the ingredient of being a Stanley Cup champion. You have to have the ingredients to make the recipe whole. And yeah, some nights it's going to be the star players that drag you through the fight because that's why they're star players. But then, there are series and maybe that's where Barkov and Kachuk and a couple of others are, where they're less noticeable, but it feels like that's okay because you have a confidence that at some point in this Eastern Conference final, maybe the Stanley Cup final again, those guys are going to be big game players.
You know what I think anyway. Really good teams have is they've built the roster, and the roster doesn't care because they're a really good team. They don't care who scores. They don't care what their numbers look like. They just plug along, and what the game needs at that time, that's what they give. Last year, Paul Maurice, we asked him, late in the playoffs about Vladimir Tarasenko, who wasn't having a great playoff. He said, look, what I need from him, or what we need from him, is 1 goal a series. I was like,
Jeez.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So does Matthew Tkachuk need to lead the team in scoring? Probably not.
No.
Carter Verhaeghe had a really slow start to the playoffs. He's got 5 goals again. Right.
Yeah.
So now it's his turn to carry the offense. Sam Reinhart's had an okay first 2 rounds by his standard, but Sam Bennett's got 7 goals. Like it's always somebody different. And I think with good teams, the fact that the players can absorb a time when they don't offensively contribute, they just say, oh yeah, okay, so I got to do something else. Once you get to that point, I think you become one of the best teams. And Florida obviously rode it that way to the Cup last year. And right now, I mean, they look right now like the best team.
They do. Yeah. I'm going to put you a bit on the spot here. And if you were voting for the general manager of the year, and it's a 2-man race, not saying it is, I'm just saying it's Jim Nill of the Dallas Stars and it's Bill Zito of the Florida Panthers. Do you give the edge to Zito because of how, I mean, they clearly saw something in Seth Jones aside from a mammoth contract that convinced them that with the right structure and coaching, he'd be the player that he is right now in Florida. And then you throw Marchand in the mix and some of the other pieces, but then that's not acknowledging what Jim Nill accomplished in the ads that he brought to Dallas.
Well, I mean, I'll start with Jim second, or I'll start with Jim first, rather. That they brought in Rantanen, that's the headliner, but they brought in Granlund and Ceci. That was a little bit earlier, which was a big deal. And then Rantanen showed up, and then it was a deal nobody talked about anymore because we were all of us were pretty well focused the other way. You talk about Marchand, Seth Jones. In the offseason, they had to rebuild their 4th line, and that 4th line has become a very good line for them. I guess right now I would give a little bit of an edge to Zito. If Jim won it, it would be awesome for Jim too, because they've done a remarkable job there, moving pieces around on a very good team to make it better. It's one thing to take a lousy team and make it better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But now they're working around just, okay, we could use a little bit of this or maybe a little bit of that. And those deals are tough to make, but they've both made them this year.
Yeah. So that reminds me of a comment that Paul Maurice made earlier this week. And we've had Paul on the podcast a number of times. We know him well. It's not paying lip service. When he's comfortable, and normally it's on an off day, he will take you behind the curtain and he'll be very honest and tell you things that that's interesting. And was it earlier this week where he talked about when he first got the job in Florida as coach? Well, what he did was he picked up the phone and he called every player, and he just wanted to introduce himself. It wasn't hockey talk about here's what I expect out of you as a player, just introducing himself. And he said to a man, each player, all they wanted to do was talk about everyone else in the dressing room in a positive way. Oh, you're going to love this guy. Here's what he does. He shoots the puck. He's got a great IQ, terrific teammate, all of those things. Are you buying it? I mean, and how important, if all of that is true, and I'm not saying he's making it up, it might be amplified, exaggerated a little bit because he just so believes in that dressing room. But how much of an ingredient or a factor is that in trying to defend the Stanley Cup, which we're told is just such an enormously difficult thing to do?
Well, I'll go back to my point earlier. I think it's important because it's almost a chicken and an egg thing. Do the players make the culture, or does winning make the culture better because of the player? It's hard to put it in the right order. But the way that room seems to work is that they don't look to any one particular place for success. This is how they play. They are relentless. They're all seem to be with a mindset that this is the best way for our team to play. And maybe roles would be different on other teams, but they're in a good spot. They know they're in a good spot. They trust the coach. They trust each other. And I think it really shows, like we just go back to their last series, right? They're down 2-0 in game 3 and down 2-0. And they still just kind of plug away, and they get a bounce and they win in overtime. And now it's 2-2. They win game 5. They've got a chance to put it away. They lose game 6. They didn't look at all bothered in game 7. They came out and they dominated the first half of the first period of game 7. There's something in that room that I think teams would love to replicate.
Oh boy, I'm sure. Wow. And couple of Canadian teams among those, Toronto and Winnipeg. And we'll get to Winnipeg in just a moment. And the reason we bring them up is because they had their end of the season media availability. Kevin Cheveldayoff came out, talked about how important it is, their focus on getting Nikolai Ehlers extended if possible. He's a pending unrestricted free agent now playing at the Men's World Championship. This could get dated very quickly. But how strange is it the Toronto Maple Leafs decide to grant permission to the New York Islanders to speak with Brendan Shanahan before technically telling Brendan Shanahan that he's out as head of hockey operations. Now, he's on an expiring contract, so it wouldn't be shocking given the experience of the last 11 years under that guidance and leadership of Shanahan. But weird, right? With board meetings scheduled for later today, being Thursday. I mean, it's odd that they would allow him access, or the Islanders access to Shanny before actually having the conversation with him to say, hey, it's been good, Brendan, but it's time for both sides here to cut bait and move on.
Doesn't that mean they already had that conversation?
Well, apparently not. But it seems like the decision has been made without having that conversation.
Yeah, like that. That's when I saw it. I was like, well, obviously they must have had some discussion beforehand. The timing of it is a little strange. It does it not feel, though? I mean, you live in Toronto, but it just feels like there just has to be a new direction, all of it. And that might not mean as many changes as people think, but it just feels like the air has to change there. They've taken a hell of a decade run at it. And, they came from a place that they weren't in really good shape. And they've had lots of things they're probably happy about, but at the end of the day, maybe it's time for a different direction. And I mean, that's what it appears like is happening anyway.
Yeah, I get that. And I also appreciate the fans wanting a pound of flesh, right? Even though, I mean, let's be fair. Let's acknowledge they went to game 7 against a very good Florida Panthers team. And I'm less caught up in the score of game 7, the score of game 5, because oftentimes in the playoffs, as we know, Ray, I mean, the situation dictates the score. If they lose 2-1 or 3-1, is it better? I mean, you get down a couple of goals, you got to open it up against a team like Florida. They expose your weakness. I understand all that. I just feel like the synergy that Shanahan has now, this past season anyway, with Brad Treliving and Craig Berube, three men aligned in how they think the game, the way they want their teams to play, even though they don't have the pieces to play that way entirely yet, is there for the first time maybe ever under the leadership of Shanahan. So I don't know what's going to change if you put somebody else in that chair, or Tree just takes on more of that role, or Keith Pelly takes on a piece of that. I just don't know that changes anything on the ice.
Well, if you say maybe for the first time ever, but he hired the other people.
Yeah.
So like that would
Agreed.
be, I mean, that would be fair to say. So then he hired the wrong people. And eventually you don't get to keep hiring people, I think is probably how it goes.
Yeah.
The other part to that is whatever's happening at the board level there is something that I certainly don't understand it or have any type of feel for, but Keith Pelly's the new head, and maybe he's got a different idea of how that whole leadership tree works.
Yeah.
And if he does, well, then there's going to be changes.
Yeah.
And there might be a new reporting system. There might be a new management system. Who knows what it'll be? Or they might. Well, I just can't get past this. They gave him the okay to talk to the Islanders. I was going to say, or nothing could happen. But why would you give him the okay if you were going to? Would you not just go, hey, Shanny, hang on till Thursday? And then, or the Islanders have waited this long. They could hang on another day or two.
That feels the way it needed to go. So it's John Collins, I'm sure, who makes the call, probably to Keith Pelly. We'd like permission to speak with Brendan. All right. Well, you know what? We've got some stuff we've got to clear through here. We've got a regular scheduled board meeting Thursday afternoon. Can we get through all of that? And I'll have an answer for you Thursday night, or worst case Friday morning. How's that? Let's go instead. Anyway, it's the way it is. Certainly in Toronto on a regular basis. Okay, we won't dive too deep into Winnipeg. We've got lots of time to do that down the road. And Cheveldayoff really wouldn't say a whole lot more than what he said anyway. But specific to Nikolai Ehlers, who's earned his right like every unrestricted free agent, I'd be surprised if Ehlers doesn't go to market on July 1st. Why wouldn't you? But I also have a high level of understanding and appreciation for Cheveldayoff saying, okay, well, let's let Nikolai go represent his country, Denmark. He can come back after the men's worlds. We'll engage with the agent. We'll see where we're at. That's the time to really dig into this. But that they're going to go hard after Ehlers because he's a fan favorite. When he's healthy, he's a really, really good player. And this might be the most important reality in Winnipeg. It's damned hard to get free agents to come to Winnipeg. So when you've got a guy who started his career there, has played over 670 NHL games with the Winnipeg Jets, absolutely you're going to try and extend him for as long as you can. Maybe the rest of his career. He's 29. I mean, that makes sense, doesn't it, to push that hard?
Yeah, it does, but it's the same with Marner, and it was the same with Rick Tocchet. Like, the team can do what they do, and if the other side of it is a free agent, you can do. Chevy said, "We're going to put our best foot forward." Maybe that doesn't matter. Like maybe he says, "You know what? I do want a new place to play." Rick Tocchet did, and went to Philadelphia. Like the Canucks made a big offer, and he said, given all the parameters, I'm going to go to Philly. Maybe the Leafs offer Marner a contract that in October was the one he would have taken. And now he's like, maybe not. Right? Like it's the only time you get to choose. And when you're this close, I would tell every player, just take it to the first. And you're going to get calls immediately, and you're going to have to decide fast, but you've also had 3 weeks here to think about it and to put some, preliminary conversations in order. And on the first, maybe at 7 a.m, you call Chevy back and say, "Yeah, Chevy, we're in."
Yeah,
And
why not?
And then, right, like at
Yeah.
least take a peek at the door.
Sure. And look, I mean, Ehlers is a priority, but Winnipeg has other priorities. And that number 2 center spot is probably one that Cheveldayoff is at least going to throw his hat in the ring for the guys who are available. I mean, we think that Brock Nelson likely ends up in Minnesota. I mean, we don't know that. Otherwise, it'd be considerable tampering involved. But, I mean, he'd be a candidate. We know how deep Cheveldayoff went into that negotiation with Lou Lamoriello before, a decision had to be made. And Brock Nelson said, as much as I appreciate Winnipeg and I would go to Winnipeg, now I've got Colorado on the hook here, and I'm going to Colorado. Which brings me, as we get towards the end of the podcast here, to John Tavares, because there seems to be 2 camps here, Ray, right? O-Dog and I debate this all the time. Healthy respect for what John Tavares has done in the last couple of years of his career. He's an older fella here, but he just looks after himself, and he finds ways to contribute in a big and healthy way. And he did that this year. He did. You could be critical of postseason production, but man, go down the list of the Maple Leafs who you could criticize for that. As a number 2 center, are you okay with giving him a 4-year deal? Maybe even 5. And the reason I ask it that way, and I hesitate in asking it, is, the fan in most people just automatically goes, I'm not giving him, he's a 34-year-old man turning 35. I'm not giving him a 4 or a 5-year contract. That doesn't, okay. Well, do you think they love the idea of giving Chris Tanev a 6-year? Like, general managers, for the most part, the cap guys, this, Ray, they don't think that way anymore, do they? They look at it and they go, okay, well, I need John Tavares for the next 2 years, or it's not going to matter to me because I won't be here. So if it takes 4 years for me to plug that 2C hole, 4 years in a term on a contract, then I'm happy to give it to him to bring the AAV down to where I'm comfortable. Is that the approach you'd have? Does that make sense to you?
Well, I hear it, except what are you trying to do? Are you trying to be the same team? Do you think that John scored, I think, 35 goals this year, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think he's getting 40 next year, or do you think he's getting 30? And the year after, do you think he's getting
38 now that you say that?
Oh, okay. I mean, so is he getting 40? Yeah. Is he likely to get 40 or likely to get 30? Yeah. And then the year after, is he likely to get 35 or is he more likely to get 30 to 25? Yeah. Like, he's not going to get faster. The game always will evolve.
Right.
It's easy to say, however, I'm not giving the guy I'm not going to sign him. Well, now you have another hole. Like, you got to put somebody there. And if you sign somebody for $5 million who's just different, but kind of does the same.
Yeah.
Like, if you sign Brock Nelson, for example, or John Tavares, what's the difference?
Right. Yeah.
They're kind of the same age. They kind of move around the ice the same way. Like, they both really look after themselves. They're both respected veterans. They both had good years. Like, it's not easy. I guess they have to decide what exactly is the goal here. Are they trying to turn most of the roster over, like at the top end, or just a little bit of it?
Yeah.
If they've decided, I think the Marner decision plays into the Tavares decision. You got to remember they've got to allot a lot of money for Matthew Knies.
Oh yeah.
Because if they don't, whether he wants to stay in Toronto or not, he's going to get a knock at his door.
For sure he will.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like those, I just look at it. Just hasn't worked, and it hasn't. We've had this discussion about 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
And eventually, at what point do you just say we got to try something different? That's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I would like to know what the other options possibly could be, because you can't just take a guy out of your lineup.
No.
And create this other hole. And now you need 2 centermen.
Right.
And where are you getting those guys?
No.
And so it's a complicated dance for a guy as he gets older, for sure.
No question about that. All right, buddy. Well, on that note, we'll depart the headline section of the Rain Dregs podcast, brought to us by Acon. So, what does one do on an off day in Dallas aside from prep for the next game? Have you got plans? Is Ryan Rashog taking you out for dinner? Dipping into his wallet?
No chance. No chance. Although I suspect Rashog's got a 1992 wallet, like one that's all tattered around the edges and with lots
The George
of extra.
Costanza with like hard candy in it. Yeah.
Can't be any worse than the running shoes you showed up in yesterday, Ray. My goodness.
Yeah, you know why those shoes are beat up, Ryan? Because I work out in them. Your shoes look like they came right out of the box. I'm going for a barbecue something or other today at lunch.
Interesting.
You may have heard Texas has some barbecue.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
one of our camera guys I got to call him back because I forgot the name of the place, but he was like really pumped about this one area and this one barbecue place. So that's going to be the middle of the day adventure today.
So do you dive into the Yingling like at lunchtime, or is that a tad early? Nice cold, crisp Yingling to wash down. What is it? Ribs, the brisket? What are you going with?
Ribs for me. And yes, there's no other way to eat barbecue, is there?
No.
Come on. Can I have a glass of lemonade, please? I don't drink a lot of beer anymore, but man, it's
nice cold beer.
That's the thing
nice.
right there. Oh yeah. And it'll be 80 degrees here anyway. It's all hazy and stuff like that, but it's a good mix in the middle of my day.
Well, I'm very jealous because it is terrible here in Ontario. Terrible. Like 9 degrees Celsius, like gale force winds. My patio chairs were at the back of my yard this morning when I got
It's a good thing your fence is good.
I mean, the wind is like the rain was sideways. And the only reason it really peeves me off is I had allocated this morning after the podcast to go to the range, go to the Royal Ashburn Golf Course and spend a couple of hours hitting balls, working on the putting green and doing all that. And it's nonsense. I mean, I guess I could stand in my rain suit like a moron, but I'm not doing that either. So
maybe Ryan could fly there and build you a simulator.
Oh, that's right. We're not going to pay the mortgages this month, Randine. I gotta tweak my simulator. That thing, I got it.
Well worth it. I am dialed in from a $135 in. I am dialed in. So
7 iron. Nice crisp 7.
Hey, that weather you described is an Alberta summer. Put on your frickin' golf stuff and go hit balls. You can't let weather like that chase you away. You're so soft.
Senior shaft. Oh yeah, I get it.
Okay, I do. Now that we're onto the simulator for just a moment, who's got the best setup is Duffy, unless he wants to work on his driver because he can't swing it.
Yeah. Who put the simulator in a basement with an 8-foot ceiling? Like, how do you not suss that out ahead of time before you stroke the check?
And I've been fortunate enough once in my life to be invited to the Duthie compound.
Oh, really?
And I mean, it is an impressive piece of property in every sense. The home is beautiful. The backyard, spectacular. The pool, all of it. Like this guy spared no expense. And he actually has a carriage house, right? With, like living quarters above the garage. Like, come on, man. Like you had to have... there had to be space in this endless string of renovations to do that simulator up properly. And a place, Ray, for all the gadgets that we see Duthie roll out on a regular basis. Like the elbow tuck and everything else.
From the high...
to just say to his wife, I'm putting a golf simulator in your parking space. Not everybody can pull that one.
That's where he stores all his Gemini awards, though.
Although, how many times did you have to brush the truck off this winter?
Doesn't matter. I did it with a giant smile on my face, scraping off Randine's car.
Well done. All right, good for Randine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, until we meet again.
Have a good one.
What are we looking at travel-wise?
Well, Game 3 is Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
And
Oh, you're
so we'll
going back
probably
to
get at
Van
it.
though for a day?
Yeah, I think we can
Nice.
do it Monday morning, and
Oh,
we'll
very
get
good.
a knock it out Monday.
Sounds good,
So
buddy. All right.
enjoy the next couple of games, everybody, and thanks for listening, and be well.
Yes, and thank you to our sponsors who continue to support the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Make this pod possible twice per week, every week. Our title sponsor, Tim Hortons, thank you. And thank you to Acon. Until next time, stay safe, everybody.